Hello, and welcome to EducationUSA Virtual Week. EducationUSA is your official source of information on U.S. higher education. My name is Ron Mitchell, and I'm an EducationUSA advisor in Wellington, New Zealand. I'm delighted to be hosting this session with you today. Today is the final day of our week-long webinar series, which has brought you 10 live virtual sessions on different topics that will help you prepare for study in the U.S. During Virtual Week, we've featured more than 20 expert U.S. admissions specialists and EducationUSA advisors. Today, we're excited to also be giving you the opportunity of hearing directly from two students who have undertaken studies in the United States. The topic for our session today is successful transitions to campus. And joining me today, we have Katie Jabri, the Assistant Director of International Admissions and Partnerships at Concordia University, St. Paul in Minnesota. Philip Chen, originally from Melbourne, Australia, is a 2020 graduate from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. And Marinello Stollenwerk Cavallaro, originally from Auckland, New Zealand, is a rising junior at the University of Notre Dame in Indiana. Katie, Philip, and Marinello will be telling you a bit more about themselves during the session, and they'll also be available to answer some of your questions. If you are tuning in live, we encourage you to post your questions on our Slido page by going to www.sli.do and entering the session code that you see on the screen. And now, I'm very pleased to invite Katie Jabri to kick off her presentation for us. Over to you, Katie.
Thank you, Ron. All right, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. We have some great slides to try to give you an idea of a lot of helpful information as you prepare to join us on campus in the United States. And just an idea, or to let you know, this is not every possible thing that you'll run into, but hopefully we can provide you with some very helpful information so that you can have a great time on your campus. So the first slide, as you prepare to leave, there are many ways that you can get prepared before you're even traveling or on the campus. So the first thing, online orientation. Many campuses are starting to have online orientations required, or with the current situation, they may have moved a lot of information online. So this is a great way to start learning more about important key facts about the campus. Another way to get to know your campus more is the campus tour, which a lot of these have moved online. I know my campus, we actually have two different virtual tours that you can watch so you can get a feel for the campus. Make sure before you leave that you know where you're gonna be staying. So if you're living on campus, make sure that you have that housing application completed. If you're living off campus, have that apartment lined up, or kind of make sure that you know where you're going to be staying when you're arriving, as well as transportation. So depending on where you're going to be arriving, there may be public transportation that you can use to get to campus, or Uber and Lyft are very popular throughout the United States, and some universities will actually pick you up from the airport. So it's good to have a lot of these lined up before you're even, getting ready to get on your plane and come to the United States. So as you're actually preparing to travel, make sure that you have kind of your very key documents with you. Actually, we like to say on your person, or in your pocket, or your carry-on items would include your I-20, your passport, and your visa. Just to make sure that as you're arriving and going through customs, you have all these items with you. You aren't going to be able to, get into your checked luggage and try to pull out your I-20. You need to have that information or those physical documents with you to provide that at customs. Make sure that you arrive in time for your orientation. This is a very key component of learning about your campus, getting to know your fellow students. So it's very important to arrive on time for that. If you are able to arrive a few days early and try to fight off the jet lag, that's very good. I personally have been to Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji, and I know that time difference coming back is tough. So if you can, add a day or two ahead of time, that'll really help you, because orientation is nonstop information. So you want to make sure you're awake for it. And another important thing to know, or make sure that you know, is where you're going. Some universities in the United States have very similar names, or there are multiple cities with the same name. So make sure you know exactly where you're going, and make sure you know the climate. Minnesota in January is very cold. So I always tell students, you got to have a jacket. So just make sure whenever you're arriving, make sure you know kind of what you're getting into. So kind of the key component to this presentation is helping you realize there are a lot of resources available to you on campus. Each campus in the United States, there's thousands of schools. There will be a variety of resources, and each school will be a little bit different, but some of these key things will be throughout the campuses. As I said before, a lot of this you will learn at orientation, but again, that's a time where you're getting a lot of things thrown at you, so it's hard to kind of remember everything. So hopefully, if we are telling you this ahead of time, you'll be aware and kind of conscious of, oh, these will be available for me in the future. And I always tell students, don't be afraid to ask for help or seek out these resources, especially with your international student service staff. They understand, they can be a key starting point, and then if they need to direct you to another office, they're always going to help you throughout that process. All right, so the first topic we're going to talk about is academics. You're coming as a student. Technically, it should be the most important thing that you're doing is your academics. So it's good to be aware of all the different academic resources available on your campus. So campuses will have some sort of academic advising center. Some schools you'll have an academic advisor, or you might have a professor. That's a little bit variable, but you will always have someone that can help you figuring out what classes you need to register for. If you have any questions about your major or changing your major, academic advising will be able to help you with that. The library will always be a great resource for you, whether that be, going there physically or all of the online resources. You'll always have tutoring services available, whether if that's specifically for your major or, your general classes. A lot of these have moved online, so you may be able to seek these out through your online resources. Maybe you'll have a Zoom or Skype meeting with a tutor, but a lot of things, especially recently, have moved online. So if you aren't comfortable going there in person, you will be able to find these resources online. One of those pictures I included is called Brain Fuse. That's one online resource that my university uses, and I know our students use it all the time to check on things like if they're worried about potential plagiarism with some of their sightings, which that's a whole fun other topic we could get into. But just know that, especially any resources you might need, whether it's the writing center, there'll be something available on campus to help you. Office hours is another thing that can be very helpful for students if you are able to meet with the professor directly, if you have very specific questions about your class, or just need some extra help. If you go to their office hours, which can vary by professor throughout the day, that can be a good way to get some additional help outside of, the tutoring and other services we mentioned. And then another thing I wanted to include is study abroad, which we would include as kind of an academic option. So we know you're already studying abroad in the United States, but you can, again, study abroad in another country. So this can be a kind of a fun way to get, additional experience and kind of fulfill additional requirements in your academics. This next slide, I think, could be its own webinar, and I'm looking forward to our students talking about this, but student activities can be a huge part of the student experience in the United States. So there are endless opportunities with different clubs and organizations. They can be based on your academic interests. So if you're an engineer, there could be an engineering club. If you're in accounting, there can be an accounting club. Huge variety with that. Intramural sports is kind of a way for, not super competitive, Division I or II athletics where you can get together, play volleyball, play soccer, whatever it might be. There are various religious organizations, performing arts. If you wanted to volunteer in your community, there are a wide variety of service learning opportunities. Some schools will have fraternities and sororities. Student Senate is a way to get involved on campus, or kind of other opportunities that way. It's really kind of anything you're looking for, you could find it in a student club, or if you don't find it, you could create your own. If you have, I think most schools, you'll want to have 5 or 6 other people. You can come together and create your own new club that way. Career services are also a nice way to kind of expand off of what you're learning academically and prepare either for an internship during your program or afterwards. You may find this with a career services or development office. They'll provide you with a lot of great resources about if there's job fairs in the area, if there are employers coming to your campus. They'll kind of let you know about that. They'll prepare you for writing your resume. If this is going to be the first time that you've had to create a resume or a cover letter, this office will be a great resource for that, as well as doing mock interviews. I think this can be the most challenging part about getting a job is that, interview where you have to answer questions. You don't know what might be coming your way. So this is a great opportunity to prepare that way. And then these services potentially will be available after you graduate. So if you're looking for a job on OPT and you need additional resources, the career office would still be available for that. Athletics, I think, is another thing when students are thinking about coming to the US. Sports are a big deal. And depending on your school, the range of importance may vary. In the United States, we have the 3 divisions that I think a lot of people are aware of or might key in on. So if you're going to a D1 school, which I think our 2 students who will be speaking after me are at, their level of importance of athletics might be a little bit different than a small private school. So it really varies. And again, if you aren't into athletics, it's not going to impede on your life. But if you are a huge fan, if you want to be a Cameron crazy, like I show in the bottom corner there, athletics can be a lot of fun for students to get involved with themselves or as fans. Many colleges will provide free admission to certain things, or you may get a student discount if you have to pay for the event. One thing that I think is fun is, it's very important to wear the team gear whenever you're going to games or around campus to show pride for your university. So you need to make sure you know your colors and the various kind of sweatshirts and t-shirts that you need to have. And then if you're a student athlete yourself, you may have additional resources available to you on your campus or through your team. All right, so next slide, housing. It's important to know where you're going to be staying. So when you're not in classes or involved in your clubs, you have a good space to relax, study, and get involved with other students. So we reference you're either going to be living on campus, so near or on your university's campus. There are a lot of resources like Residence Life or some name similar to that. You'll have residence advisors or RAs in each of the areas. And some universities have living learning communities where if you're studying in a similar subject or there's a kind of joining thing with you and the other students, you'll have that opportunity to kind of experience your studies together. If you're not living off campus, that would be considered off campus. There'll be a wide variety of apartments or housing opportunities, and many schools will have an off-campus housing department to help you figure out where you're going to stay. And then once you're on the campus, there'll be commuter resources available as well. All right, food, very important. You're studying all the time, you're in your classes all the time. What are you going to eat? Each campus will have, some sort of food available to you. It could be a gigantic dining hall with chain restaurants available to you, or it may be a smaller cafeteria. There will be a wide variety. Coffee shops will also be available to you. Hopefully, you got to have that caffeine. And then if you're living on campus, you may be able to cook in your room or you may not. There'll be a wide variety for that. Meal plans, sometimes if you live on campus, you'll have a set amount of meals you can have per week or per month. All this information is very kind of varied, but you should have some sort of food available or maybe a quick option to get you through your time on campus. And then there are a wide variety of food delivery options in the US, especially now. They just kind of keep increasing. So if you ever, you can't find something on campus and you need, Uber Eats or Bite Squad, whoever it might be, to bring you some food, that should be available as well. All right, just a quick note that another thing as you adjust to your time in the U.S., that healthcare is very different in the U.S. probably from your home country. So just be aware that you will need to have health insurance. It's a requirement for all F1 international students. This might be provided through your university, or you may need to seek it out through a private company. So just be aware kind of going in that things will be a little bit different, but your institution will help prepare you for that as well. All right, my last one. So I would say your go-to, if you have any questions, start with your International Student Service Office. They'll be a great resource for you, regardless of the topic. Again, a lot of information will be provided to you at orientation, but they're always going to be available to you, during your time as a student, and again afterwards if you're doing OPT. They'll provide all your immigration advising. So if you have questions about how do you maintain your status, can you do this work opportunity, can you study abroad, whatever it may be, this office will be able to help you with that. They'll also have their own activities and potentially their own student groups. And many will also have alumni organizations that you can participate in. All right, so that's my part of the presentation, and I'll hand it off to Marinello.
Great, thanks very much, Katie. You've given us a wealth of information there. And so, yeah, we're going to transition to hearing from our students now. So Marinello, if you could just take a minute to tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you've been doing in the United States.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Marinello and I'm from Auckland, New Zealand. I went to high school at St. Mary's College in Ponsonby, and I go to the University of Notre Dame, which is in South Bend, Indiana. And there I'm a rising junior, so I've been there for 2 years, and I study political science, and I have minors in theology and European studies.
Fantastic. Thanks, Marinello. And now, Philip, would you please introduce yourself to us?
Yes, so hi everyone, I'm Philip. I recently graduated from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, where I majored in finance and real estate and also minored in cinema studies. I'm originally from Melbourne, Australia. I went to Hunting Tower School in Melbourne, and I'm super excited to be here and share my experience of going to college in the US with you all.
Thanks very much. So, Philip, let's stick with you for a minute. And could you tell us a little bit more about what it was like for you to transition from high school in Australia to a big university in the United States?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can be upfront and say I don't know a single person in the US, nor have I ever visited my campus until the day I stepped foot there as a freshman. So I think the transition was pretty stark to me in the beginning, but what I can say is that all the schools, no matter what school you go to, will do a really great job of doing orientation for you. I would say it's very much like summer camp. There are so many, you have a schedule, there's so many activities, and I think the great thing about school in the US is often there is a great international community where no one knows each other in the first place. And also a lot of your American friends who have also don't really know many people either. So you're really all in it together. And that first week is really where you get to do a lot of activities. If you look at this slide, these are pictures just from my very first week at Penn. And I didn't know any of these people. And then after a week, you really do form a lot of new friends. And that's super exciting to do with. And no matter where you live, you'll most likely be in some sort of school dorm. Your dorm will have RAs and GAs who are resident advisors and graduate assistants, I think, who will be forming a lot of events so you get to know your whole mates and your neighbors, and you'll really get that community really quickly. And I would say it's totally all right to be homesick or feel overwhelmed in your first few semesters, but you know that there is a great community on campus, and you can always go to, as Katie said, the international students community, your friends from your fellow country to always have that mutual bond with. But I think quickly you'll settle in and have a great experience.
That's great, Philip. So you said you didn't get to visit your campus before you went, but we know that a lot of universities are now offering virtual tours as well for students who aren't able to get across to the US before they start. So could you tell us, was that something you had access to or that you've had experience with?
Yeah, I would say 4 years ago when I was applying to schools, I don't think they were as quite tech savvy as they were now. So I didn't really have a lot of great virtual options. I think I just mainly went through whatever they had on their website. But nowadays, I really, really recommend all of you to go to whatever universities are interested in or are going to and go do a virtual tour. A lot of them are live, and they have sometimes like at your own pace, like Google Map style virtual tours as well, which is really great way to see the campus.
Great, thanks very much. So Marinella, can you tell us as well a little bit about what your transition was like going from New Zealand to the United States?
Yeah, sure. So I was slightly different because I'm a dual citizen, so I'd been to America a few times to visit family, but I'd never actually been to Notre Dame, like visited the campus, anything like that. But I had done some kind of virtual tour online, which like took me through the roads. You can go from like one building to the next. So I moved over without my parents, but I was able to have my aunt and uncle move me in for international orientation. And at my school, international orientation was optional for dual citizens, I think, but I would highly recommend it just because it really does help with the transition because you're meeting a lot of international students who are like going through the exact same things as you are. And then afterwards, we had the normal welcome weekend, which, like Philip said, is very much like a summer camp. And the whole thing is built to like help you make friends and really help you transition into the experience. So yeah, I think the transition experience overall, there were some moments of culture shock and some like hard moments where you try to navigate like getting a bank account and all that kind of stuff. But the universities usually do really help you with the transition.
Great. So Marinella, we'll stick with you for this next question. Can you think of anything that you wish someone had told you before you went?
I guess a couple things. One of the things would be that you will experience culture shock. I kind of went into it assuming that I wouldn't because I'd watched so much like American TV growing up and had been there a couple times, so I kind of felt like I knew it all. But there were definitely a couple things that like confused me when I first got there or realizing that people had like different experiences growing up to me. So I think one of the things was that you will experience culture shock. And then the other that really hit me that I kind of wish someone had told me was the differences in, I guess, like schooling and homework levels. Because I went through NCEA, which is for New Zealand, like the national curriculum, and there everything is based on like doing internals. So you'll have a lot of homework at a certain point and then nothing for a while. Whereas in the US, it seemed like constant homework every night, but slightly less. So not that one was like necessarily harder than the other, but that was definitely one of those things that shocked me a little at the start.
Right. Okay, thanks very much for sharing that. What about you, Philip? Can you think of something that you wish you had known before you went to Philadelphia?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think it's definitely okay to take it easy for the first few semesters. I think there is a tendency for especially incoming freshmen to try to join a million clubs and try to do everything at one time, which is, to be fair, that was pretty much me. I was in like 7 clubs as a freshman. Don't do that. Try to take it easy and do things that really interest you, and it's totally okay if you just want to take it chill as well. And also, I think on Marinella's point, I think also don't stress too much if you think like your academics or your schooling background from your home country isn't matching with the American system quite yet, because I think all the universities you go to are acutely aware of that, and they do a great job of catching everyone up so you're all on an even playing field very, very quickly. And also, I would say the last thing I would say is be open to really exploring your school, your campus, and the city or area you're based in. I think I went into college thinking I would see every nook and cranny of Philadelphia, but it's very, very easy to be stuck in, your school's bubble or whatever area it's surrounding your immediate surroundings. So definitely get out there and explore whatever area you're in, because that's an opportunity you shouldn't really pass up.
Thanks very much. That's awesome advice. So Katie talked a little bit about making sure you make use of faculty office hours. I'm just wondering, for the two of you, how much access did you feel you had to your professors? Were they available to you, and was that something that you made use of?
For me, definitely. I feel like it's something that's less talked about here, especially in New Zealand, like office hours, but over in America, at least at my school, our professors will want to meet you at the start of the semester, so they may tell you to come to their office, and then before writing every essay, I'll usually try to go to my professor, see if he likes my plan or outline or anything like that. So I think definitely office hours are something that you really do start to take advantage of.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think I agreed with everything Marinella said. I think the US system really emphasizes on building that relationship and community with the academic staff. And I definitely went to office hours all the time, not just when I had a question or I was concerned about an assignment, but also just to form a relationship with a professor. Because these oftentimes are really amazing people, award-winning. A lot of professors I worked with had New York Times bestselling books, and their office always had, time where it's open doors. You can go in and ask about anything or just get advice on life. And that's something you should definitely take advantage of.
All right, thanks very much. So Philip, we'll stay with you. Could you tell us a little bit more about your living situation? Did you live on or off campus? What was that situation like for you?
Yeah, so when I was a freshman, Penn had a freshman year you had to live on campus policy, but now they have a freshman and sophomore year you have to live on campus policy. So I was on campus for my first year at one of the college houses, is what we call them, not dorms. And it was a great way to just meet so many people. You're surrounded by people from all the different schools at Penn and all around the world and all across the US. It was really great to have that immediate friendship group that you kind of form in your halls. And then afterwards, from sophomore year onwards, I lived at an off-campus apartment. But when I say off-campus, it was directly across the road from campus. I would say it's pretty close. And because I had the advantage of living in a really big city, there were so many housing options. So it really is determined by where your school is kind of located and the options you have there.
Sure. How did that look for you, Marinello? Were you on or off campus for your first few years?
For me at Notre Dame now has a rule that you have to live on campus for your first 3 years. So I've been on campus for the first 2 and will be on campus for the next one, and then off campus for senior year. But yeah, they have this on-campus policy because the dorms at Notre Dame are really about like building community. So a lot of your friends and a lot of your community is based in your dorm. And all the dorms are like random for us. So we get randomly placed in a dorm and you get randomly placed a roommate. And all the dorms are single sex. So it kind of builds like the fraternity sorority system without actually having it at Notre Dame. But yeah, I really enjoyed it just because like in the dorm, all your friends are living there, you meet so many new people, and like they have activities. So my dorm will have different fundraising events or different dances, or you can take part in dorm sports, and it really does just help to build community at school.
That's great. Thanks very much. So I think your different experiences are really helpful in reminding students that because there are so many different universities across the US, there may be different policies about residence life. So be sure you check that out with your admissions advisors before you go. Katie, could I ask you just to fill us in on what is the situation at Concordia St. Paul? Do they require students to live on campus, or do you have a requirement around that?
We typically require students to live on campus, especially in the first year. For our international students, sometimes we've had a little bit of flexibility if space isn't available for them to live off campus. But similar to what Philip was saying, some of our off-campus options are directly across the streets or very close to our campus. And we're also very close to a lot of public transportation options, so it's very easy for students to get to campus if they're not physically living on campus.
Right. Thanks very much. Marinello, could you tell us a little bit about some activities that you've been involved in at Notre Dame and how those have sort of enriched your experience?
Yeah, sure. So the thing I'm probably most involved in is just my on-campus job, which was really important to me to get at the start of like when I first got there, just because I think it really helped with the transition since I'd been working all through high school. To like get a job right at the start and start working just made everything a lot easier for me and more familiar. So my job is just I'm an office assistant at the Notre Dame Alumni Magazine, and so you just kind of do administrative stuff with that. But then I'm also involved in the International Admissions Board, which is helping admissions officers with outreach for international students. And then also, again, like in my dorm, we have a lot of different activities. So you can be on like hall council and help with different fundraising events. Every year we have a big fundraising events for Meals on Wheels, and then different like sports. So there's a big flag football competition every year.
All right. Thanks very much. Philip, you mentioned that you jumped right into lots of different clubs right from your first year. Can you tell us a little bit about the different types of activities you were involved in?
Yeah, I was involved in quite an array of things throughout my time at Penn, but I think the main things I was involved in was, firstly, I was a tour guide for Penn, and that was really fun. Although we didn't get paid, we got a lot of swag, and also it was just a great community of very talkative people, which is always fun to get to know. And two, I ran Penn Social Entrepreneurship Movement, which is a club dedicated to social entrepreneurship, is something I really care about. And we did a lot of consulting gigs for a lot of various social enterprises across the United States and across the world. And we're kind of like student advisors to all of these companies. And that was really insightful and helpful, even just as a business student. And it was really valuable to see that, even after a year of college, you really do gain the insights that you can help bring and gain value to these companies you're working with. And I did a lot of artistically related things as well. I was in a film club, which I love because I'm a cinema studies minor. And I also did a play my junior year at Penn, which is really fun. The verdict is still out there, how my American accent went. And lastly, one of my main involvements was a tutor for the West Philly Tutoring Project, where we went out into the Philly Public School District and helped tutor kids.
All right, thanks very much for sharing those. I wanted to ask Katie, maybe, could you talk a little bit about the requirements around working on campus or working as an international student? Marinella mentioned that she had an on-campus job. And Philip, you've done some paid and unpaid work. But Katie, if you could just touch on what the requirements are around that, that would be great.
Sure. So for on-campus work, F1 international students, they're able to work up to 20 hours a week. That's considered part-time throughout the academic kind of calendar. They can work more time during the summer or during breaks. And another thing, sometimes schools are a little bit different. So at my institution, we considered 19 hours to be the maximum time that students can work throughout the week to be considered part-time. So there's a little bit of variability there, but the general regulations would be 20 hours a week on campus is available, and you can work anywhere. Other work opportunities, it has to be related to your major, but on campus, you can really do anything. So it's a great opportunity to do something maybe you think you wouldn't have done previously. There's a lot of jobs available in the various offices, dining hall, the library. There's really kind of endless opportunity for students to get a job on campus.
All right, thanks very much. So Philip, what did you do during your summer breaks? And yeah, were you able to travel home, or did you stay in the US? What kind of things were you involved in?
Yeah, I think as a business student, I primarily did internships during my summer and also tried to travel a little bit as well. So, for example, freshman year, I was at a marketing job in Shanghai because some of my family is there, so I wanted to go there. And sophomore year, I was working at a real estate firm back home in Melbourne, Australia, which I wanted to be in it as well. And junior year, I was doing kind of my main or like official internship, you can call it. I was working in investment bank in New York City, which is where my future job lies. But there's a lot of great way to spend your summer as well. For example, you can do research, you can volunteer, you can just spend the summer traveling or studying abroad as well. For example, before I started my junior year internship in New York, I spent 3 weeks in the south of France with Penn, going to the Cannes Film Festival as part of the cinema studies department. And that was undoubtedly the best 3 weeks of my life during my 4 years at Penn. We had like passes to go see all the movies. We had tickets to go walk on the red carpet. Like, it was incredible. And those are the experiences that really, truly enrich your college experience there as well.
That sounds awesome. Thanks very much. What about you, Marinella? What are your summers looking like?
Okay, so my first summer between my freshman and sophomore year, I took part of my school's SSLP program, which is a summer service learning program, where they have about like 100 spots throughout the US, and they put you up with housing either on site or with an alumni, or they give you housing and they give you like a stipend and a scholarship. So I was working at a Catholic worker Mary House in New York City, which is kind of like a homeless shelter. So I was working there and living there on site. And I was there for about 8 weeks. And then with the money I got from that, I was able to fly to Europe to visit my friend and then visit family in Europe too, and travel around a little bit. And then this summer I had a grant to go work at a refugee center in Rome with a few other people from my school. Obviously that one got cancelled well into March. And so because of Corona, I've flown back here to New Zealand and I'm just working for the summer.
All right, thanks very much. So, Philip, we might come back to you, but you've already told us what your favorite part of your college experience has been. But if you think of something else, we'll give Marinella a chance to share on that. And if you think of something else you want to add, we'll come back to you.
For me, like, I would say part of it has been all the fun kind of like campus events, like kind of the things that you see on TV. So for my school is a big football school. So one of the funnest things has been the football games every season, just because it's such a big event every single weekend with like 80,000 people coming to campus and tailgates and the big game. And I did not like sports before I went there, but it's kind of just like the whole vibe and everyone getting together. And so that's been really fun, and like living in the dorms and stuff has been really fun. But probably the best part of my experience in general has been the different kind of classes I've been able to take that I wouldn't have been able to take here. So one of my classes, we got to do a trip over fall break to DC where they like put us up and like we met lots of important people. And so that was really cool. And then another class I was able to take last semester was a class in a prison about an hour away from Notre Dame. So it's like, it's an inside out program where students from Notre Dame will take a class at the prison with students from the prison, and it was a prison writings class. And that was every week. And just kind of classes like that you wouldn't experience anywhere else, kind of would have been my favorite part of the experience.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Thanks very much. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Philip, apart from your awesome trip to France?
Yeah, a couple of things. I would say my favorite part of the US college experience is a couple of different things. So firstly, I think don't underestimate how useful a liberal arts education is. I think it really gives you opportunity to explore your interests. A third of my classes was a liberal arts core where I had to take classes outside of Wharton, and I took a lot of cinema classes. I took anthropology classes. I took and really, broadens your knowledge of the world and the cultures you live in, and I think that's really interesting. Secondly, I think one of my favorite things is community. I think that is something that most people try to go to US colleges for, is that opportunity to get, really form a network of amazing friends, professors, and alumni. And I think in general are smaller in the US than this, and that intimacy is something that's really valuable, not just during your college experience, but for the rest of your life as well. And thirdly, I would say there are a ton of opportunities that any school you go to in the US will provide for you. It's, it's a global network no matter what university you goes to, and it really helps accelerate your career. And also there's so many resources at these schools that they really try to invest in their students. For example, I deferred my full-time job for the next year because I had the tremendous privilege of winning the President's Engagement Prize at Penn, which was a $100,000 grant to launch a nonprofit of my own. So I'm launching something called the Unscripted Project, which is bringing improv training into public schools in Philadelphia. And that's just an amazing opportunity that Penn provided me. And that's something that you really should take advantage of. And lastly, I would say, as Marinello said, it is tremendously a really fun time. It really is the time of your life. Having 4 years to go to college in the United States is a great chance to kind of be independent, be an adult, travel, meet new people, and also engage in, that US college traditions, whether that be going to football games or at Penn, for example, at all our football games during halftime, we all throw toast into the stadium, like physical pieces of bread, because it's part of our school tradition for hundreds of years, apparently. And, these are the events that really form and really kind of, it's the icing on the cake of the American experience. And that's something that's so valuable and memories that you really can keep for a lifetime.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you both very much for sharing your experiences. We do have a few questions that are coming through on the Slido page. So hopefully you'll be happy to answer some of these. So you've both talked about living in campus housing. So one of the questions that's come through is in the dorms or halls that you've lived in, do you share bathrooms, and how's the food? Do either of you want to respond to that?
Yeah, sure. For me, yes, we do share bathrooms. We have communal bathrooms, so there'll be a few showers and a few and a few toilets. So it's interesting, but it's honestly not that bad. You get quite used to it. And for me, the food is pretty good. We have a dining plan. The dining hall is massive, and so you have a lot of options. Plus, you do have like extra money on your card that you can use at other dining services on campus. So there are like cafes, burger places, things like that. So I've honestly quite enjoyed the dining experience, and the bathroom experience you just get used to.
I'll add that at Penn, at least, there are lots of different options for housing. There's like traditional dorms where, you're in shared rooms and shared bathrooms, but, that wasn't really my cup of tea. So I was like trying to find the apartment options, and they had a lot of apartment options at Penn as well, where it's like 4 people with 4 separate bedrooms, and you share like a bathroom between the 4 of you. So that's kind of my housing situation at Penn when I was on campus, which was really nice. You get that like privacy a little bit as well, which was nice. And in terms of food, Penn had 5 dining halls, and they were all pretty good, I would say. It was all like a range of options. You can eat healthy food. They cater to all dietary requirements, whether that be vegan or halal or kosher, all these things. And of course, there's like, burgers and fries and stuff like that as well. But there's also lots of opportunities to eat around campus. We had food trucks on campus, and I was also lucky that I was in Philadelphia, so there were so many restaurants, and we can Uber Eats and things like that as well. So you'll definitely won't go hungry.
All right, cool. So I have another question for you from one of our viewers, and it is, how much stuff did you bring from home? And how did you manage that? Did you bring a lot of stuff, or did you buy everything you needed when you got there?
For me, it was just me flying over, so I had the 20 kg limit on my suitcase. So I mostly brought over clothes and everything I could fit in my suitcase, and then bought everything over there. So I ended up going online, Bed Bath & Beyond, Walmart, Target, and Amazon, and having everything delivered over there straight to the dorm or to my aunt and uncle's house where I was staying right before that.
I think I was very similar. I think I just bought a suitcase stuffed to the brim with clothing, and then everything else I bought there. I think what I love about the US is that, the Amazon network there is like ridiculous. We can get things delivered on the same day, like sometimes in like 2 hours. I was like, okay. So you can really get things really easily.
Okay. Philip, you talked about looking for apartment options in terms of your housing. So one of the questions that's just come through is, did you have to pay extra for that option?
Yeah, so if you look for apartment, no, at Penn, I think they're all the same price, honestly. So I think all the options are all the same prices. Even if you're in like a shared room, or if you're in a private room in an apartment, I think it's really depending on what kind of environment you're into. So this is more private, while the other, you form a better community, or, you're easier to meet people in that, shared environment. So I don't think I paid extra, I think. But yes, but at Penn, it was kind of a lottery system as well. You kind of put in your top preferences on where you want to live, and they try to give you something in your top 7 preferences. So you never know where you'll end up, but I don't think I paid extra.
Okay. No, that's cool. Thanks for that. I think it does probably vary from one university to another. And so it's really important to check that out with the school that you're going to, what the cost of different types of housing might look like for you before you go. And yeah, just a reminder again that, different schools are going to have different policies in terms of how long you might be required to live on campus, or when you can move to off-campus housing. All right, let's see other questions that we've got. Are either of you willing to answer a question about financial aid that you received? Did you receive financial aid, and are you willing to talk a little bit about that? Yeah, Marinello?
Sure, yeah, that was a big part of my decision making for going to the college I decided to go to. So yeah, I did apply. It was a whole very difficult process. Yeah, I was able to get very good financial aid from Notre Dame. It's all made up of like the grants that they give you, as well as loans, as well as work study. I don't know how in depth they want the question to go, but I do know that it is a very big part of the decision making, and it's something that you do have to apply for every year. So it's something to really keep in mind.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so while I'm personally not on financial aid, I do know quite a bit about the process. I think a lot of schools in the United States are need blind when it comes to the admissions process, so don't hesitate to apply for financial aid at those kind of universities. And at Penn, they're very, very generous with their financial aid, whether it be grant-based. A lot of them are grant-based, so you don't have to pay it back. And I think the key advice on financial aid is that really just apply. And then a lot of times you think, the expensive private schools, they'll actually probably give you more financial aid than some of your other options. And that could work out to be cheaper as well. So just keep.
Another thing that I learned going through the process was sometimes you can get a financial aid offer and you can send an email back and kind of ask for more, or kind of go through the situation again, and it is flexible. So your first offer may not be your final offer.
Great, thanks very much for that. Katie, do you have any comments on financial aid that's available for international students?
I think, like many of the things we've talked about, it really depends on the university. But there may be some, need-based scholarships, or like my institution, we have a lot of merit scholarships as well as talent scholarships. So if students are in theater or music, they can get scholarships there. And then some universities are able to provide athletic scholarships to their students as well. So it's one thing, if you're needing financial assistance, or you just want to know kind of what your options are, make sure whoever you're working with throughout the admissions process is aware, and just kind of ask those questions. It's probably the first or second question from really anybody going to a university, so don't be afraid to ask.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you so much to all three of you. So we are at about the end of our time, and we're going to wrap up now. So I want to thank all of those who are watching for joining us for this Successful Transitions to Campus webinar as part of Education USA Virtual Week. Thank you very much to Katie, Marinella, and Philip for sharing your experience and expertise with us today. It's been great having you on. If you would like to know more information about these institutions or other US universities, please follow our hashtag EducationUSA Virtual Week. And if you've missed any of the sessions during the week, the recordings are available on our Facebook page on the Videos tab. We do have one more live Q&A session coming up right after this, so please join us if you can. And check out the recordings of the Education USA Virtual Week sessions by visiting bit.ly/EduSA Virtual Week Live. And if you have further questions, please do get in touch with your local Education USA Center and visit www.educationusa.state.gov for more information. Thanks again for joining us. Thanks, Katie, Marinella, and Philip. Hope you all have a great day, and thanks for giving your time to us today.